I actually had a friend out in New York City, this guy Rick Roman, or I'm sorry, New York City, in Philadelphia, who we drove horse carriages together in Philadelphia. We did the tours around Independence Hall and stuff. And he left for a couple months to go out to Chicago, and he always was interested in Second City. But as happens to a lot of people, he got here, and the training center at Second City is good, but ImprovOlympic was better. So he ended up studying there. And he came back after a couple months, and he told me there was a forum where you could do anything you want to do. And I was like, wow. I was doing stand-up at the time, and that definitely is not a forum where you can do whatever you want to do. You're very restricted by the venue and the audience. So I like sold everything I had and bought this big Chrysler New Yorker and drove out here to Chicago and started taking classes at ImprovOlympic. And he had told me all about him, so Del was already this legendary figure, this old chain-smoking beatnik kind of thing. And it was actually as good as he said. I was surprised. It ended up being so like amazing and liberating. And it was one of the few teachers I've had, maybe like 3 or 4 other ones who, of all the teachers I've had who actually taught me something new. Like tangibly, Del could teach you an improv and actually make you funnier and sharper through his method, which, God, there are not many people who can do that. You know, there's people that can free you up, there's people that can give you the chance, they can guide you, but he actually would aggressively sort of steer you in interesting directions. And a lot of people didn't like it. I mean, there's a lot of people who hated Del, but you just look at the work that he generated, you look at his work, and it was always interesting. Charna's amazing as well. Charna's just like the most tenacious person you'll ever meet. There's been points where like ImprovOlympic was like, you know, like a name on a bar napkin. It was like didn't even exist, or where like, you know, people were huddling together and like next to a pool table and doing like musical option, and she just refused to let this go. And I always give her the biggest credit too, which is so many people when they get in charge tend to want it to be about their own ego, but she was always smart enough to realize this was Del's vision. And she worked so hard at serving that vision through the leanest times. I mean, there were times where when I came there, they literally, it was just like a bar with like a daiquiri blender in the background and like some stage. And out of that, she ended up getting this 2-theater, you know, huge space. But the most tenacious like businesswoman / artist you're ever going to meet. And she just took care of us too. We were all broke. We were all, you know, taking change from the couch pillows to buy 6-packs of Bush. And she made a point to, even though we weren't getting paid regularly to do it, she was like making sure we were okay and very supportive. But yeah, so tenacious, just amazing. And you can see now, like 1,200 seat theater or whatever this is, and it's really incredible to see.
Talk about the differences between stand-up and improv.
Well, there actually shouldn't be that many differences, but I came into stand-up having learned about it from television. So I mainly was involved in joke count, you know, get your joke, joke, joke. Then after having done improv, if I were to do it again, I would do it totally differently. It would be more monologue-based, more story-based, and I think that's when stand-up gets really good. And once again, the basic rules of play at the top of your intelligence, make the interesting choice, treat your audience like they're smart. I mean, you know, this was like 87, 88. That was definitely not what was happening with stand-up, with few exceptions. So improv is like the best training for stand-up, I think. And stand-ups that I know that have done improv are like so much better for it, sharper and more interesting. The method that Del Close taught was third thought improv, which is basically you have your first thought, disregard it because it's a first thought. You have your second thought, all right, that's pretty good, but you can do better, and it's your third thought. That's where you want to get to. And you want to be able to access that as fast and as quickly as possible. And that was really kind of his entire theory, was getting to that third thought as quickly as possible. And when you would start off, oftentimes scenes would be incredibly slow because everyone's looking for the third thought. But when you see people get good enough at it, it's amazing to behold. They can get to it so quickly, and there's a general sense. You know, in some cases it was more successful than others, but I think that's like a great approach to it, which is the burden is on you as the performer and writer to do the work for the audience so you can share it with them. And the other thing is that improv never looks good on television. Never. I've never seen it work. I don't care whose line is it anyway. It's gamey, it's fun, those guys are amazing, they're talented improvisers. It does not look nearly as good as it does if you were actually there in the audience.
I went to college, I went to Boston College, and I moved to Chicago to improvise. And I started taking classes at the Second City and ImprovOlympic, and I met Del and Charna there. And Charna was the person that gave me my first break. She really was the first person who believed in me and put me on stage and had people come and see me. And you know, we have a theater in New York City, the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, and we try to do what Charna did for us. We just try to give people a space to perform for free where they can be seen and discovered, you know.
What lessons did they teach you?
Probably a lot of the lessons that you've been hearing a lot tonight. You know, the idea of taking care of each other, of listening on stage, of trust, you know, of trying to say yes on stage and in life. They taught me to get better, to be a better improviser. They just they gave me a vision. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and they just kind of steered me one way and said, why don't you go that way? And the whole time I was walking there, I met all these really cool people on the way, so I just stayed. So I don't know what I would do without them. I really don't. I don't know where I would be. So it's a pleasure to be here. I knew that Chicago was the place where you could actually go and study, and it was kind of like the Mecca. And so I kind of came here just to take classes, and I waited tables, and I lived all over the city, and like everybody else, starved, and probably did our best work when nobody was watching, and it didn't matter, you know. So yeah, that's why I came. Del basically taught us the idea that improv is not a means to an end, but its own end, and that I knew I wanted to be an actor, and I knew I wanted to be a comedian, but I didn't want to be a stand-up. Not very good at it. And when I saw my first improv show, I just couldn't quite explain it, but I thought, I can do that, I think I would be good at that, and that's what I want to do. I didn't know anything about it until I moved to Chicago and started studying. Yeah, it's the best kind of art form because it's completely, there's a reason why you need to be on stage with other people. And it's all about taking care of each other and listening in its best moments. And it's like it's a true outsider art. I mean, I think it is. I think it's like, it can be political, it can be, you know, it can be all kinds of things, and should, you know, hopefully be funny the whole time.
Is humor about truth?
I think so. Del used to teach us, and we tried at the Upright Citizens Brigade to try to like find what was real in scenes, and that was what was funny. Like in Truth and Comedy, they talk about that, in the book that Charna and Del wrote, about how real things are the most funny. And so if you try to play things as realistically as possible, if you live life on stage, then the humor comes out of the situation and not the ridiculousness of the characters or the like parody of some, you know, commercial or something.
What goes through your mind when you're performing at improv?
Nothing. I don't know. Everything and nothing, I guess. I guess if you're truly in the moment, then the only thing that's supposed to be going through your mind is what's happening in that moment. But all kinds of things. Sometimes if it's a show that's, you know, not going so great, or if I'm tired or distracted, what's going through my mind is, you know, when can I smoke a cigarette? Oh, so-and-so's here. Oh, I shouldn't have said that, blah, blah, blah. But in the true moments when you're in the zone, then all that's going through your mind is like what your partner just said to you. And you can have one of those moments in like a couple years, and that'll keep you improvising for the rest of your life.
Can you talk about what those moments feel like?
They feel like the best high. They feel like you finally disconnected yourself from your brain, and they feel like you're part of a much bigger thing. They feel pretty magical. And they don't come very often, but if you have one or two, they keep you going, and you just are constantly searching for that moment again.
I don't consider myself the best improviser by any means. To be an improviser, you have to have a brain, you know, and I think that I go into this mode of like a deer in a headlight mode. Yes, I get nervous. I'm nervous right now. I'm nervous thinking about tonight. I really feel like I'm flashing back to the days when we used to perform at this place called Cross Currents under the L tracks. You could hear the Belmont L rattling the building while we were on stage. And you know, you just had to speak up a little when the L was passing by. But yes, I get nervous. I get very nervous because you go out there with nothing And I mean, you're expected to entertain the people, you know, whether it's make them laugh or make them think. And that's what I liked about the way I was taught with Charna and Del Close, and that is, it's not about making people laugh necessarily. It's really about pulling from what you know, in your heart and your soul or whatever, just your experience. From my experience, from my personal experience, I can pull from that and not have to worry about if the audience is going to laugh. That takes a lot of the pressure off right there, as opposed to other schools of improv or comedy where it's more about, make them laugh, be bigger, put a wig on and put big glasses, crazy glasses.
Or your hair to your shoulders.
I was gonna say, it looks like I'm wearing a big wig and crazy glasses. But, but the thing is that's the main thing about Charna and Del is they even wrote a book called Truth in Comedy, and that's what it's about, just pulling from your own experience. So I can go on stage with nothing, because I don't just have nothing, I've got 35 years of some hardcore experience, just living life. So if I can just speak honestly and hopefully I'm witty and cute and funny in the meantime. Of course I want people to laugh, but it's also nice to make people think, like I said. I write via improvisation. I write by improvising. I have never been able to sit down at a computer and write, and then he says, and then she says, and so I don't do that. I literally get in the room with somebody else, somebody who I feel has the same sensibility, comedically or just artistically, and we bounce ideas off each other, and it's a bunch of like, okay, yes, okay, how about that's good, and then how about this, or let's change this, and it's back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. It got to the point with my writers on the MTV show where it was more like, this is not how improvising should be, but it was like this. It was like, no, yes. I mean, that's the exact opposite of improvising. Improvising, Charna's company, I think, is still called yes and, that's the basic rule of improv, is you agree with everything your partner or partners tell you. Here we are in Spain. Yes, we are. And let's spread out the blanket because we're having a picnic. So it's yes, agree with it, and then you add something to it, and then you're just building something together, and hopefully it's funny or intriguing or provocative or weird.
Well, I think to watch it, the fun thing about it is that it looks so scary. It's like watching people, jump out of airplanes or do stunts or whatever, because most of the audience is scared of public speaking, so then you're seeing people up there with no scripts, and I think it's sort of exhilarating when they end up saying funny things. And then the audience is always on your side, for the most part. They're always like wanting you to do well. So it's sort of this communal experience. And I don't know, it's just fun to see people that quick on their feet, I think. And also working together in a sort of, I don't know, supportive kind of way. Well, the fun thing is when it's working well, you feel like, almost like you're channeling something. When it's working really well, like you're saying the lines before you even realize that they're funny, and then like the best lines of all, just come out that quick, and then like, everyone's laughing really hard, and you're like, oh my God, how did I think of that? Like, that's when the most fun thing is. And then like, with everyone in some sort of groove, and like this person's doing it, that person is, so you're laughing at what your partner's saying, but then you're also contributing. Like, it sort of feels a little out of your control, but those are like, I don't know, 10, 20% of the times. Then 10 or 20%, like, you're totally stifled and stagnant, and you just can't, you're thinking too hard, and you're trying too hard. And then there's the more middle ground when it's working pretty well, and, it's a fun time. But then, yeah, every so often there's that really rare, stellar occasion. So.
Can you feel that coming? I mean, can you tell, like, you get on?
No, like, that's the other thing, is like, you can't control it at all. So like, sometimes if you're in a slump and you've been having some bad shows, like, the more you think, like, I have to be funny, like, the worse you're gonna be. Like, I've found when I've been in slumps, like, I start to do better when I just hit rock bottom. I'm like, ugh, like I can't do this. You know, I need to change my career. And then you'll have like this great show because you're just like, oh, forget it, you know, and then you free up again. So it's all about sort of freeing up your head and not trying to be funny. Because when you're trying or planning ahead, or it just never works. So.
Can you talk about Tina Fey and your relationship and working with her and your show?
Well, our relationship. Well, we were together at Second City, and we sort of, I don't know, I just really like her sense of humor, and I think that we kind of have different senses of humor, but we both find the same things funny. So it's, I just find that we sort of complement each other well, I think. So then I was done with Second City, and I was really bored out in LA, and she was writing for SNL, and I think she was kind of missing performing, so we decided to do this show together, and we just asked Second City, and we had this opening date, and we had 2 weeks to write it. And I just think at that point I was like I hadn't done anything in so long that I was almost like what I said, like, oh, just forget it, like, let's just do a show, you know, how bad could it be? And so we just wrote it up, and it went well, and it's been a lot of fun, so.
What are some of Tina's strengths?
Oh my gosh, Tina has a really cutting wit. Like she can just like nail somebody's sort of weakness, you know, and just bring it out in a really funny way. Whether it's like a celebrity on Weekend Update or just like some sort of human condition. Like she's really good at calling out people's truths, kind of, I'd say. And she just has a really, just a great wit. Just Del's big thing was just to be truthful on stage. Like don't try to be funny. And you know, support your partner and just be honest, and then you will be funny, and that's what you find doing ImprovOlympic too. The whole idea of yes and is like, I think it's easy when you're starting out to like look at other people's ideas and think like, well, that's not that funny, or like feel threatened by other people, or like other people's comedy, or have to feel like, well, I have this over them. But ImprovOlympic teaches you to work as a group and be supportive and make your partner look good, and you find that when you subscribe to that it does come back to you, like you make your partner look good and then they make you look good in turn, and then it really has this good feeling of support that you might not get in the regular theater world. Or I find that everyone that's been through ImprovOlympic really has that sort of togetherness vibe going, and that's the other thing. Like moving to Chicago, I didn't know anyone, and I sort of spent a year doing regular plays, and then when I hooked in ImprovOlympic, like suddenly I had this social life and this great group of friends I'm still really good friends with. Like it's like this family, and like once you're in, like you never get out kind of thing. So that's cool.
I just got picked up for the second season, so I'll be an ensemble member this year. You know, when you start, they have you as a feature player. So this year I'll be, you know, part of the show on a more regular kind of basis, which is cool. It's a sketch comedy show, so lots of ensemble pieces, a lot of reoccurring characters, you know, that go on. So.
Describe for us what makes good improvisation, and how do you know it when you see it?
Truth. It's you know, Charna has that book, Truth in Comedy, but I think that really is. You can tell if somebody's improvising from an honest place, or from if their mind is in the audience, like trying to generate a laugh purposefully or something. And I think that for me, that's, I think, where good improv originates. The fail-safe, because there's not really, I mean, other than like rules that can help you along, you know, not denying, not starting an argument, that kind of thing. But an overall technique, because I've seen things that break all the rules, you know, asking questions, really work in a scene, and so, yeah.
Is that what Charna has taught you, Charna and Del?
Yes, yeah, it's definitely very much about, I think I had a class one time that really stuck with me with Del, where he said, if you dare try to be funny, I'll throw a chair at you. And it really put you in a place of you didn't want to get a laugh out of anyone, and things that were funny came out of a very organic, honest place, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of things, yeah.
I met Del and Charna ImprovOlympic when it was at Cross Currents. And I came in to see a friend of mine, Mark Beltzman, performing with, what was the name of that group? Barron's Barracudas. It's like all of these old names. But Mark and I and some other friends had improvised in Detroit, so it was he came out here and he told us that there was this, you know, land of improv where you know, the audience supported the groups, and it wasn't like that in Detroit. So I came and saw that show, and the house was packed and people were laughing, and the comedy was really hip, and I signed up for classes, and I sort of just met Dale off and on. He you know, he was like the legendary figure that you didn't approach unless you knew who you know, unless he knew you, and then so I took Charna's class, and then started performing, you know, with the class group, and then I took Dale's class, and they put me on a team, and Grime and Punishment, I think. I played on a lot of teams when I first got there. I can remember one team was Andy Dick was on the team, and Lily Taylor was on the team. And that was like our class team. And then I started with Grime and Punishment, and we just was a normal team. But I mean, you know, Dale, for me, I'm sure like a lot of other people, he just totally opened my eyes to, you know, the potential that I didn't know I had, you know, and he sort of, you know, taught us how to sort of free yourself up to improvise and to be in the moment and to commit on stage and to use your intelligence, and that your first thought was probably not the best one, that if you took time, then third thought would probably be the better comedic premise. And so, and also, like, you know, just it was okay to not have dialogue and to not have jokes, and to let things sort of develop, you know, and it just made it sort of magical, you know. So, and then Dale also, I mean, for me, my career, I mean, he when he went back to direct at Second City, he hired me from the touring company and put me on the main stage, which, you know, and Chris Farley also, and Dave Pasquazi and Joel Murray, Holly Wortell, and Joe Liss. I mean, he just took these other people and he just formed this new main stage cast, and for me that was everything, you know. And this is a story I've told before, but I went to the first rehearsal for Honor Finnegan and the Brain, and I thought I was supposed to be there. And when they started rehearsal, he got pissed because I was there and told me to get out of the rehearsal. You're not in this show or whatever. And so I left and I went and sat at the bar, and then later he came out and said, you know, I'm not going to use you. I can't use you in this show, and I think you're good, and, you know, just keep working. And the next show that I direct, I'll hire you for. And then the next show he directed was the Second City, and he hired me. He kept his promise, and you know, that's why I'm here. That's why I flew in, because you know, when somebody does something like that for you, he totally changed my life, you know.
I was just gonna say that he's this huge catalyst for you.
Yeah, definitely.
And Charna, has she played a role for you too?
Yeah, I think, but Charna was more, as far for me, I mean, Charna was more the introduction to Dell. You know, she sort of introduced the ideas early, you know, in the early classes, so that if you had you know, if you really wanted to do it and if you could do it well, then you could go to Dell's class. But so for me, Charna was like just the beginning, and just that she had this theater that, you know, that supported this type of performing. You know, I was pretty impressed by it.
I think studying improvisation in general, for a lot of the people that you'll talk to here, made sense to them as an art form and in their life. The whole concept of yes and, of agreeing and adding on, of a positive outlook to life, of making statements as opposed to asking questions, just being, you know, just being bold in your life and being fearless whenever you can be. I think all these people have applied that knowingly or not, have applied that to their actual life as well as to on stage. And as far as Charna and Del, they gave us, the first thing they gave us was they gave us a place to be on stage. Other training centers, it's parceled out to you. You will be in class for a year and then you will perform for half an hour. You were on stage here as soon as before you were ready. It was a water birth. You know, you came out swimming, and that was the main thing. They gave us a thing that I think Del taught me, or I feel like I learned from Del, was the biggest thing you learned from Del was not to try to be cute or purposely humorous in anything that you were doing. If you were really exploring a suggestion at the top of your intelligence, it would be compelling, and there was no need to try to be entertaining. Anything sugary in that way was just wiped out when you studied with Del. I think the title Truth and Comedy is appropriate for what you learn when you studied with Del or you studied with Charna and her teachers. The idea of improvising and honoring a suggestion, I think, for me, has influenced the way I approach writing and everything too, because I can't think of just a crazy sketch idea out of the air. I have to be responding to something in the news or socially, or a character that someone has. I feel like I have to be honoring a suggestion in some way, the way I would be at ImprovOlympic. Otherwise, it feels self-indulgent to me. So that's how it's influenced my way of working. I don't know about anybody else. Sometimes, rarely when you're improvising, I can probably remember it happening twice in the 10 years that I've been improvising, where the scene takes over and things are coming out of you, actions and dialogues coming out of you before you think of it. It's just you and your partner, or it just gets ahead of you. And that is an amazing feeling, and very rare, very rare. When it's not going well, I think once you've lived through it enough times, you just feel like you're in molasses if it's not going well, and you want to try to jumpstart it. But once you've been through, and this happened to me more at Second City than at ImprovOlympic, but once you've been through something that's going really badly, that is almost, there's a free fall to that you can be giddy in its own way. Sort of looking at your scene partners being like, this is horrible, and just continuing. You always have your team with you to share that feeling with. Yes, I think a big part of the enjoyment of watching improvisation, people who go to see it, is knowing that there are risks being taken, knowing that it could go wrong at any minute. That's why some things are hilariously funny when they're improvised, that if you try to write them or then re-improvise them, they're not funny. It was only funny because the audience knew in that moment that the person was creating it in front of them. I think people who are fans of improvisation like it in the way that people like sports, because they don't know what the outcome's going to be. They might know they're going to see some good players, but they don't know how it's going to turn out.